I was sitting at home watching some TV, enjoying my time off from the military to relax and enjoy life. I reflected on the past 2 years that I had served in the US military. It hadn't always been easy, but I was proud to have been a part of it. The bonds I had formed with my fellow soldiers were unbreakable, and I knew that we would always have each other's backs. I couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment knowing that our efforts had finally paid off. After fighting General Barkov and the rest of Russia, the US military had come out on top. It was a hard-fought battle, but we had done it. As I sat on my sofa, I couldn't help but hope that this victory would mean peace for the foreseeable future. While it was an unfortunate reality that there would always be conflicts and challenges, I hoped that the US could avoid another major war for a long time. I also couldn't help but hope that the Russian army would change for the better now that General Barkov was gone. It was important for all nations to have competent and fair leaders, and I hoped that Russia would find someone who could bring a sense of stability and integrity to their military. With the war over and my time off, I found myself wondering what I would do next. I had some options. I could continue serving in the military, take some time off to travel or volunteer, or even look for a civilian job. It was a bit overwhelming to have so many choices, but I was excited for the possibilities that lay ahead. I chuckled to myself as a fond memory came to mind. My love for a fan game called The Joy of Creation Reborn. It was a Five Nights at Freddy's parody game that I had spent countless hours playing and enjoying. I couldn't help but let my mind drift to an interesting possibility. It would be really cool if there was a version of The Joy of Creation Reborn where the player character was a US military soldier. Imagine being able to use military-grade weapons to shoot at those creepy ignited animatronics. Talk about adding a hardcore element to the game. I looked over at my arsenal of weapons in the corner of my living room. There was the FSS Hurricane assault rifle that looked like the one from my favorite military game, Call of Duty: Modern Warfare. Next to it, my reliable Glock 19 handgun was waiting for me. I suddenly had an idea that made thrills go down my spine. What if I could play The Joy of Creation in real life? I quickly got up from the sofa and walked over to my weapons. If I wanted to make this happen, I knew I'd need my arsenal. I made my way upstairs to my room to grab some extra ammo for my weapons. I knew that if I was going to bring the game to life, I'd need plenty of ammunition for my FSS Hurricane and Glock 19. I searched through my military supplies and grabbed multiple clips of extra ammo. I set the ammo down next to the guns on my table for now. It was still only 7 p.m., and I couldn't begin my real-life gaming adventure so early in the night. I decided to sit back down on the sofa and pass the time by watching TV for a bit. As I sat back down on the sofa, I realized that I was feeling hungry. I decided to get up and head to the kitchen to prepare a quick meal. I fixed a plate with some delicious fried chicken, a side salad, and my favorite fruit. And to top it off, a cold root beer. I finished my meal and cleared away the dishes. I was feeling energized and ready to begin my real-life gaming experience with The Joy of Creation. I checked the time on my watch. It was 8 p.m. I decided that it was finally time to start. I donned my military operator uniform, slipping on my tactical gloves with ease. The fabric of the uniform felt familiar on my skin, a testament to the countless hours I had spent in it. Grabbing my FSS Hurricane assault rifle and Glock 19 handgun, I took a deep breath. It was time to transform a game into reality. I stepped out of my house and walked over to my newly purchased armored military truck. The vehicle glistened under the streetlights, a symbol of power and protection. I hopped into the driver's seat and ignited the engine, feeling the hum of the engine beneath me. I was ready to drive to the Joy of Creation house and immerse myself in my real-life gaming adventure. I navigated my military truck down the quiet city streets, the engine purring softly. There were few cars on the roads at this time of night, but I maintained a steady speed. My destination was clear in my mind, the Joy of Creation house, where my real-life gaming experience would begin. I continued driving down the smooth main road for nearly 45 minutes. The city eventually gave way to a dense forest as I ventured deeper into the countryside. The trees grew taller and denser, and the road became more isolated. I could feel the anticipation building within me as I drew closer to the Joy of Creation house. I turned off the main road and onto a dirt path. The path was dimly lit by wooden poles with lamps fixed atop them. The trees on either side of the path created a sort of tunnel-like effect. My pulse quickened, knowing I was on the right track to the Joy of Creation house. After approximately 10 minutes of driving on the dirt road, the Joy of Creation house came into view. The building was exactly as it had appeared in the game, a decaying and eerie mansion. The moon shone overhead, casting shadows on the dilapidated structure. I parked the armored military truck in the driveway, the gravel crunching beneath the wheels. This was it. I was officially here. I gripped my FSS Hurricane assault rifle in one hand, and grabbed my loaded Glock 19 handgun, securing it in the holster on my military belt. I took a moment to check the ammunition in the rifle, making sure I was prepared for whatever might await me inside the Joy of Creation house. I stepped out of the armored military truck and approached the entrance of the Joy of Creation house. The gravel crunched beneath my boots as I walked, the only sound in the otherwise silent surroundings. I reached the front door, which was partly ajar. Taking a deep, steadying breath, I pushed the door open and entered the house. As I stepped inside the house, a sudden change in the weather occurred. Lightning flashed outside, and the sound of thunder rumbled in the distance, announcing an incoming storm. The house, already eerie and ominous in the dim light, seemed even more sinister as raindrops began to patter against the windows. I remembered the storm from the game and how it added a certain level of atmosphere and ambience to the environment. The real-life situation was mirroring the game, and the thunderous roars and flashes of lightning outside only heightened the sense of danger and tension inside the house. I took a moment to appreciate the familiar-looking sconce lamps on the wall, the cone-shaped shades around the bulbs casting a warm glow around the corridor. Nearby, an old radio sat on a small shelf, playing a smooth jazz tune that sounded like it was straight out of the 1940s. I chuckled to myself, enjoying the realistic detail and the atmospheric touch the music added to the setting. I continued through the small corridor and rounded a corner, only to find myself facing a closed door. The smooth jazz music from the radio continued to play in the background, setting an eerie tone to the already atmospheric setting of the Joy of Creation house. I suddenly remembered that I had forgotten to turn on my helmet cam and start recording. Cursing under my breath, I quickly reached up and switched on the helmet cam, ensuring that I'd be documenting this entire real-life gaming experience. I opened the door and stepped through, entering the darker part of the house. The shadows seemed to press in on me from all sides, the only light coming from the sconces near the door. I gripped my rifle tighter, my senses heightened in the diminished visibility. I flicked the flashlight switch on the FSS Hurricane, and a beam of light illuminated the space in front of me. The shadows retreated somewhat as the light from the rifle cut through the darkness, revealing the hallway ahead. It was still dim and shadowy, but at least I could see where I was walking. I paused in my tracks as I heard the loud booming sound of metal footsteps echoing down the corridor. The rhythmic beat of the footsteps was punctuated by a bobbing white light that seemed to illuminate the path ahead. My heart rate quickened, and I gripped my rifle tighter, sensing that danger was nearby. I quickly turned around and retraced my steps back down the hallway, the sound of the metal footsteps and the bobbing light still echoing behind me. I reached the door at the corner and swiftly turned into the left hallway, hoping to put some distance between me and whatever was making that ominous sound. I continued down the left hall and turned into the center corridor, where a single lamp provided the only source of light. A sense of deja vu washed over me as I saw the three corridors connecting, realizing that the entire section of the house was shaped like a square. The layout was eerily similar to the game, and the realism of the situation sent a shiver down my spine. I cautiously approached the corner and peeked around, my heart beating faster as I spotted the source of the white bobbing light and the booming footsteps, an ignited Freddy. The sight of the twisted animatronic sent a chill down my spine, reminding me that this nightmare was all too real. I watched in tense silence as Freddy moved down the other corridor, the light bobbing and the footsteps echoing in the hallway. My fingers gripped the rifle tighter as I followed him with my eyes, not wanting to lose sight of him. I waited for Freddy to disappear from view before making my next move. Taking a deep breath, I walked under the lamp and into the adjacent hallway, my senses on high alert. The house was eerily quiet, the only sound being the soft clacking of my boots against the hardwood floor. I cautiously continued to explore the other hallways, staying vigilant and alert for ignited Freddy's presence. With each turn, I tried to avoid encountering the deadly animatronic, while searching for the next objective in this real-life gaming experience. I entered the doorway into this new section of the house, and was immediately struck by the familiarity of the layout. It resembled the newer version of the first floor from the game's endless mode, yet it was directly connected to the old square layout where only Freddy stalked the halls. The contrast in layouts was both intriguing and unsettling, adding to the already tense atmosphere. I continued to explore the new area, taking in the different halls and corridors. The new section felt even more unsettling than the previous part of the house, and I made sure to keep my eyes open for any signs of ignited Freddy as I made my way through the labyrinthine passageways. I stepped into a room that seemed oddly out of place, with shelves and a couch. A single wall lamp provided a dim light, casting long shadows across the room. Something about the room felt random and out of place, and it left me feeling puzzled as to its purpose in the grand scheme of the house. I walked into what looked like a home office, but the placement of the desk and the proximity of the wall behind it struck me as being a bit cramped. I couldn't help but ponder if anyone had actually worked in such a small, confined space. The closeness of the office chair to the wall was almost claustrophobic, adding an extra layer of eeriness to the setting. I continued to move through the new layout, my rifle aimed and ready to react at a moment's notice. The storm outside continued its furious assault, the intermittent flashes of lightning adding to the unease I felt. Every step I took echoed through the halls, the only sound other than the thunder. I was caught off guard as ignited Freddy suddenly appeared at the end of the hallway, the white light from his eyes aimed directly at me. My heart skipped a beat as the twisted animatronic spotted me, and I quickly ducked behind a nearby corner, hoping that I'd been quick enough to elude him. I took off running, as ignited Freddy began charging down the hallway after me. My heart pounded in my chest, and I focused only on putting distance between myself and the dangerous animatronic. I darted down the nearest corridor, desperate to find a hiding spot or a way to lose him. I continued to run, my heart racing and my breath coming in quick gasps, as the chase between me and ignited Freddy persisted for another 5 minutes. Finally, I saw an opening and quickly turned, aiming my rifle directly at the corner where I expected Freddy to appear. I steadied my heart best as I could, and prepared to shoot on sight. As ignited Freddy turned the corner, my finger squeezed the trigger, and I unleashed a barrage of bullets at the animatronic. The sound of gunfire echoed loudly through the hallway, adding to the already tense atmosphere. I watched as the bullet struck ignited Freddy, causing him to convulse and ultimately fall to the ground, powering down. The sudden silence that followed was nearly deafening, and I took a moment to catch my breath, adrenaline still coursing through my veins. I swiftly pulled out a fresh magazine and reloaded my rifle, my hands trembling slightly with adrenaline. I then cautiously walked away from the motionless form of ignited Freddy, backtracking to the old layout area of the house I had been in before. While continuing to navigate the familiar corridors of the old layout area, I noticed a door at the end of the hallway. The sight of it brought a sense of unease, as I didn't know what might be on the other side. I cautiously opened the door and revealed a stairway leading downward, the light from a single at the bottom faintly illuminating the area. Something about the stairs sent a shiver down my spine, and I could feel my heartbeat quickening. I recognized the stairs as the entrance to the basement, where I knew ignited Bonnie was free to roam. A wave of trepidation washed over me as I imagined the deadly animatronic lurking in the shadows below. I recognized the stairs as the entrance to the basement, where I knew ignited Bonnie was free to roam. A wave of trepidation washed over me as I imagined the deadly animatronic lurking in the shadows below. I recalled how much faster ignited Bonnie was compared to his slower brother ignited Freddy. The reality of having to deal with the swift and dangerous Bonnie added a new layer of fear to my predicament. I readied my rifle, my grip on it becoming firmer as I mentally prepared myself for the inevitable encounter with Ignited Bonnie. I knew that the faster animatronic would be a more deadly adversary than his previous brother. I ventured further into the basement, my rifle at the ready while I scanned every dark corner for any sign of Ignited Bonnie. The dim lighting cast ominous shadows in every direction, making it even harder to spot the elusive animatronic. I thought back to what I knew about Ignited Bonnie. I remembered that he didn't have a face, and his eyes glowed a menacing red. The thought of encountering the faceless, menacing animatronic made me feel even more on edge. I continued walking through the dark, basement corridors, the sound of my footsteps echoing off the walls. The light from my rifle's flashlight flickered every now and then, adding to the overall eeriness of the situation. Every turn and every corner felt like it could be hiding Ignited Bonnie, waiting to pounce. I froze in place as I heard the familiar sound of Ignited Bonnie approaching. Peering into the darkness, I caught a glimpse of the animatronic walking past, his red eyes glowing in the dim light. My heart raced as I tried to remain as quiet and still as possible, praying that I wouldn't draw his attention. I swiftly turned a corner and moved down a different hallway, hoping to put some distance between me and Ignited Bonnie. The basement was a maze of corridors and halls, and I knew that getting lost down here could be dangerous since any dark corner or room could potentially hide the deadly animatronic. I breathed a small sigh of relief as I remembered where the stairway was. Having an escape route mapped out in my mind gave me a slight sense of security, but I was still on high alert, knowing that Ignited Bonnie could appear at any moment. With each step, I continued to explore the basement, my senses heightened in the dimly lit environment. The musty smell of the old house mixed with the ever-present tension of potentially running into Ignited Bonnie made me feel like I was exploring a horror movie set. After a while, I realized I had been exploring the basement for a decent amount of time, and it was time to find my way back to where the stairs were. Not wanting to get lost, I began carefully retracing my steps, making sure to remember the path I had taken. I was focused on finding my way back to the stairs when suddenly, Ignited Bonnie appeared around a corner, spotting me instantly. My heart skipped a beat as I came face to face with the menacing animatronic. I immediately turned and dashed away, trying to put some distance between myself and the pursuing Ignited Bonnie. The sound of his footsteps echoed through the basement as he gained on me, his eyes glowing red in the dim light. I raced through the basement, constantly checking behind me to see how close Ignited Bonnie was. The chase seemed to go on for eternity, my heart pounding in my chest. Finally, I spotted the stairs leading out of the basement and made a mad dash for them. I reached the bottom of the stairs and stopped, preparing myself for the inevitable confrontation with Ignited Bonnie. My rifle was trained and my breathing was steady, as I was determined to take down the animatronic rather than just keep running. I waited with anticipation, my finger poised on the trigger. As Ignited Bonnie rounded the corner, I acted quickly, aiming my rifle and firing a barrage of bullets at the animatonoid. The sound of gunfire echoed loudly through the basement as I attempted to stop the deadly animatronic. As Ignited Bonnie rounded the corner, I acted quickly, aiming my rifle and firing a barrage of bullets at the animatonoid. The sound of gunfire echoed loudly through the basement as I attempted to stop the deadly animatronic. I watched as the bullets connected with Ignited Bonnie, causing him to stagger backwards and collapse to the ground. The animatronic twitched violently a couple of times before finally powering down, seemingly shutting down permanently. I quickly dashed up the stairs, the adrenaline still coursing through my veins from the encounter with Ignited Bonnie. I made my way back up to the first floor, my mind racing as I considered what my next move should be. After the intense encounter with Ignited Bonnie, I took a moment to gather my composure and catch my breath. I leaned against a nearby wall, my heart still pounding in my chest, and allowed myself a brief respite from the chaos. I reached into a small pouch on my military belt and pulled out a small water bottle, unscrewing the cap and taking a long, refreshing drink. The cool water soothed my dry throat and helped calm my still racing heart. As I finished drinking the water, I reflected on the tasks that lay ahead. I knew that the next 2 levels would be even more challenging than what I'd already faced. The thought of confronting Ignited Chica in the forest and Ignited Foxy in the attic sent a shiver down my spine. The increased speed and stalking behavior of both animatronics would make them formidable adversaries. I mentally went over the strategies I knew needed to be applied against Ignited Chica and Ignited Foxy. For Chica, I needed to keep an eye on her, but not for too long or else she would become agitated and charge at me. And for Foxy, I had to time the use of my rifle's flashlight perfectly, to flash him only when his eyes glowed white. Failing to do so risked an enraged Foxy, and his glowing red eyes and terrifying growl would signal an imminent attack. Taking a deep breath to calm my nerves, I prepared myself for the next challenge in my quest. The thought of facing Ignited Chica in the forest made me feel uneasy, knowing the dangers she posed. I checked my rifle one last time, making sure it was loaded and ready. With a firm grip on the weapon, I stepped out into the unknown, mentally bracing myself for the encounter.